What if the world's martial arts tournament in the Buu Saga was never interrupted? How would the tournament play out, and who would be declared the winner? Well, let's get into that now. But first, make sure to like this video and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all of my future videos. So fortunately for this what if scenario, a lot of the speculation has already been filled in by Toriyama, as the bracket for this tournament was introduced just before the action began, as you can see here. This tournament was originally planned to have 4 rounds, with 15 matches in total. Out of the 8 matches in the first round, only 3 of them played out to their natural conclusions. Those fights were Krillin versus Pinta, and Krillin won this match with ease because he was up against a human who couldn't use ki. Despite their size difference, Krillin is a planet buster, so this was a walk in the park for him. Next was Piccolo versus Shin, which Piccolo forfeited before the match could begin. Now, according to what Piccolo says next, it's possible that he conceded because Shin was of a different dimension or higher order than him. Although the translation I have here says one thing, the expression that he says here is often used in Dragon Ball to say that someone is more powerful than you. Like this moment from the Cell Saga where Tien senses Goku transform into a Super Saiyan. However, Shin was the highest god at the time, which Piccolo recognized because Kami was the god of the earth at one point. Although he mistakenly thought that Shin was the Grand Kai rather than Supreme Kai. So there's an argument to be made that Piccolo only quit because of that. However, I honestly think it's
a little from column A, a little from column B.
Though it's a shame that Piccolo's power was made so irrelevant in this arc. Next up was Videl versus Bobovich, which was one of the most brutal one-side beatdowns in the series, especially in the anime, which drags it out even longer. At first, Videl was winning, but once Bobovich decided to try, he easily defeated her. But that didn't stop him from brutalizing her until Yamu said to drop her out of the ring, which he finally relented. Now that leaves the remaining fights that would have happened, beginning with the fight that was interrupted and threw the whole tournament into disarray. Gohan versus Kabito. I think it's pretty clear that Gohan would win with ease. Now sure, Kabito was first presented as being tough, but once Gohan went Super Saiyan 2 for him, it was obvious just how outclassed he really was. And I doubt that Gohan would even need to go 2 here. But while he was at it, he might as well go for the overkill. That's what I always do. Originally, Bobovich and Yamu jumped in to sap his strength here, but let's just say in this scenario that they observed that this was happening, but then realized that they stood no chance in hell against Gohan, and decided that they'd wait until the end of the tournament, when he was weakened, to steal his power. Which obviously would have made a lot more sense than what happened in the Buu Saga, considering the fact that they could tell just how incredibly powerful Gohan was, and yet for some reason they still thought they could jump in and stop him. Almost as if they read the script and knew that Supreme Kai would be there to stop them. Either way, Gohan stomps Kabito here and moves on to the next fight against Bobovich. Then we would come to an interesting matchup, with that being Android 18 versus Mr. Satan. Now this match sort of happened in the original story when the two were pitted against each other in the Battle Royal. During that matchup, Android 18 easily had the advantage. However, she gave Mr. Satan an ultimatum to pay 20 million zeni in exchange for her throwing the fight, which she did in humorous fashion, complete with a fake delayed reaction punch, like something out of Fist of North Star. However, in this case, the entire situation is very different. There is no battle royal, simply a one-on-one fight in an earlier round. And as a result, 18 knows that Mr. Satan is doomed to lose even if she throws the fight here, because he would go on to face Goku or Vegeta. As a result, I think that 18 would quickly defeat Mr. Satan here, which would come to the shock of many of the fans and the audiences watching the tournament, as well as guaranteeing that there would be a new champion to be crowned, as if we didn't already know that. Furthermore, Mr. Satan's popularity would likely decline from this bout, and he may even learn some humility. Well, unless he spins it to the audience that he threw the fight, like saying that he did it for the benefit of the tournament, and he just wanted to see who else was worthy of becoming the champion. I wouldn't put it past him, he certainly spun his way out of worse situations in the past. Next up is what many would consider the main event, which is ironically in the first round. Goku versus Vegeta. And honestly, despite it sounding like a cool fight, the winner here is already pretty much locked. Because as it was explained by Vegeta himself, Goku's powers as Super Saiyan 2 was greater than that of Vegeta's, which led to him becoming Majin Vegeta so that he could stand a chance of winning. As a result, Goku would outmatch Vegeta during their fight in every form: Base, Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 2. Now, some people think that Vegeta wasn't even a Super Saiyan 2 here, but that's incorrect. He heavily implies that he achieved it before even becoming Majin, such as when he was looking down on Gohan's power in that form, or the statement right here when he witnessed Goku use it against Yakan and declared that Goku had done it too. Or even the statement here where he thinks he might have been able to beat Gohan. With that being said, I don't think that Goku would just stomp Vegeta and would likely expend a good amount of energy during their fight, especially if they both transform. Now originally they went to this fight with no intention to use the Super Saiyan form, because of the promise to Gohan, since he was still trying to hide that from Videl. But with Goten and Trunks ignoring that and then Gohan doing it against Kabito, I doubt that they would hold back either. Although obviously Goku wouldn't use Super Saiyan 3. Either way, he moves on to the next round. Up next would be Goten and Trunks disguised as Mighty Mass taking on Killa, which would end even faster than I can finish this sentence, with the Super Saiyan kids going on to the next round. The same can be said for the final fight of round 1, Yamu versus Jewel, which Yamu would easily win with his use of Bobovych's dark magic, which was bestowed upon him with the Majin mark. Perhaps he would pull a Bobovich and torment Jewel first, turning the so-called pretty boy into a mangled mess. But considering how he stepped in to stop the match between Bobovich and Videl, he seems very no-nonsense, and would likely end it fast. This leads into the next round of the tournament, where we would see some interesting matchups, beginning with Krillin versus Shin. Now, despite Krillin being declared the strongest human by Yamcha earlier, which I'm sure that Tien would disagree with, and yes, Tien is still human even if he supposedly descended from an alien tribe, just as much as Gohan, Trunks, and the other halflings are also human, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Krillin loses here with ease. Supreme Kai could one-shot Frieza at 100%, so Krillin doesn't stand any chance, although perhaps he may try and gain the advantage by using the Solar Flare in multiform. But all Shin has to do is finger flick him out of the ring, and he moves on to the next round. Next is a fight that pretty much everyone wanted to see, but we never got a chance to, which is Gohan versus Bobovich, and I think here that Gohan would stomp him with a vengeance. This is the guy who brutalized Videl, the girl Gohan was in love with, and nearly pushed him to throw everything away and charging in to stop it. I think that Gohan will return everything to him in kind, by beating him so badly that even the dark magic won't allow him to get back up. All before spiking him out of the ring like a football in the end zone, complete with Bobovich's own Yamcha pose. Now that would have been a feel-good moment. Next up is Goku versus Android 18, and despite Android 18 being much stronger than base Goku here, he would easily defeat her upon becoming a Super Saiyan. After all, Goku surpassed Android 18 7 years before when he was trained with Gohan in the Time Chamber, so unless Goku messed around and doesn't use that form quickly enough, this would be an easier win for him than his fight against Vegeta. The only factor that might make this somewhat harder is if Goku is tired from facing Vegeta, kinda like what happened when he was fighting the Cell Juniors. But even then it would still end with him as the obvious winner. And then we get to the fight between Goten Trunks versus Yamu, which they would also win with ease, likely even without transforming. After all, Yamu was one-shot by Pui, who is weaker than base Vegeta, so ironically the guy who looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin is getting a mudhole stomped on him instead. This leads to the semi-finals, where there are two more interesting matchups. First between Gohan and Supreme Kai. Now based upon the power of these two fighters, I think that Gohan would win here. However, I don't believe that would be as one-sided of a fight as many people think. Shin's power, for example, is much higher than most people give it credit for, as not only did he specifically state that he could defeat Frieza with one blow, but we saw him restrain Super Saiyan 2 Gohan during the tournament. Then when comparing their respective fights, Shin put up what seemed like an even better fight against Fat Buu than Gohan did. So there's a chance here that he could take an upset victory, like if he froze Gohan and then knocked him out of the ring. Or maybe perhaps tying into the plot if he explained who he was mid-fight and asked Gohan to throw their match. Although I doubt that Gohan would do that. However, Gohan's overall power is still greater than Shin's, being able to fight against Deborah, who was said to be even stronger than Cell by Goku, the same Deborah that Shin was afraid of. So I'd say that Gohan wins here after becoming a Super Saiyan 2. Then we get our first father-son matchup of the tournament as Goku faces Goten and Trunks, albeit in disguise. During this fight, the three would likely begin their base forms. However, as Goku's power proves too great for them, I'm sure that Goten and Trunks would transform, which would lead to Goku doing so as well. Now, despite being portrayed as pretty slow, especially in the Buu Saga onward, I think that Goku would likely figure out who he's fighting as the match goes on, just like Android 18 did. Goku also watched and sensed the fight between Goten and Trunks before, so if he senses them again right in front of him and sees that this guy is glowing with a yellow aura, I'm guessing that he would probably figure out who he's fighting. So I'm sure this match would come to an end with Goku destroying their disguise and the so-called Mighty Mask being disqualified. However, this would provide for a nice moment in which Goku could spar with his son, no doubt commending him for his incredible power for his age and allowing Goten to walk away with a greater appreciation for his father. Oh, and I'm sure that Trunks would like him more too. Although maybe Vegeta would be butthurt that his son lost to Kakarot too. And this leads to the final match of the tournament, which is also the most appropriate given the arc that we'd seen leading up to this point, with that being Gohan versus Goku. And here we would get a fight between father and son which we had never properly saw in the Dragon Ball story until Dragon Ball Super, with the current main character Gohan facing the prior one Goku in his last hurrah on Earth. And if we're looking at this match entirely based on their power levels, Goku would take the victory here. Not only would Goku be more powerful in each of his forms, but he would also have far greater experience between the two, and Gohan lost most of his fighting sense over the course of the last 7 years. So as the fight played out between them, Goku's strength advantage would become more and more apparent. However, there are a couple of ways that Gohan could possibly get the upset win, with the first being due to stamina. After all, Goku would have more difficult fights along the way than Gohan did, having to face Vegeta, Android 18, and 2 Super Saiyans at once. So if his stamina is lower than Gohan's, I could see that making the fight closer. But considering that Goku got Senzu Beans earlier on in the tournament, there's a chance that this would be rendered completely irrelevant. The other way would be if Goku used this match to train Gohan, rather than approaching it as a serious fight, akin to the fight between the two in Dragon Ball Super, where Goku pushes Gohan to bring out more of his hidden potential and is eventually overwhelmed by it, at least in the forms that we had already seen. Now later on in the original story, when the Saiyans were on Bobovich's ship, we saw Vegeta make the statement that if Gohan raged out, he could stand a chance against Goku and Vegeta. So it could be that Goku basically engineers his own defeat, and through Gohan's current plot armor as the main character and also his hormones raging to show Videl how strong he is, maybe he can sneak out a win. However, I think that ultimately Goku would be declared the winner, as his strength, experience, and if he needs it, his Super Saiyan 3 form, would be enough to win him his second title as World's Martial Arts Champion. Now, as for what happens after the tournament, this is when I suspect that Bobovich and Yamu would intervene. However, instead of stealing Gohan's energy, they would take the weakened Goku's. With that being said, if this plays out similarly to how the main story did with Supreme Kai restraining Goku instead of Gohan, then they would fly off to Bobovich's ship and the Z Fighters would be right behind them. However, this time, I don't think that Majin Buu would be revived. Instead, the Z Fighters would likely defeat Bobovich, Deborah, and the others before they can achieve their goal. That's because of one major difference, with that being that Goku and Vegeta already had their fight, with Vegeta losing. So as a result, Vegeta would have no incentive to become Majin, especially if Goku used Super Saiyan 3 before that, because he would know just how outmatched he is. As a result, the Super Saiyan 2s would stomp Deborah, wipe out Bobovich, and eliminate the threat before it ever comes to be, at which point Supreme Kai would hopefully move the ball somewhere else, or attempt to destroy it without waking Buu. And without the old Kai being released from the Z-Sword and then giving Goku his life, Goku would return to heaven, leaving the future of the Earth in the hands of the next generation. Hopefully they won't screw everything up this time. As far as whatever happens next, I leave that up to you. Choose your own adventure, and have fun. Make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications, so you can stay up to date with all of my videos. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.